Hi greedy 3Ders, epic build time today. We're going to be making this, the red skull from Wicked, and making this bust, and the Tesseract will all glow and light up, and I'll show you how I did that in a minute. Now, if you like all things 3D printing and painting, you know what I'm going to say. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Leave a few comments in the comments box and share it with all your friends. I hope you enjoy the making of Red Skull today. I've got to be honest, it was one of my favourite builds ever. Stay tuned. Here we go, everything is loaded onto the build plate. Now, to get everything in just a couple of loads, what I have done is reduced it down to 75%, which is absolutely ample for what we've got. Now, don't forget to hollow everything out, add in your drainage holes to save yourself a little bit of resin. And when I came to print the Tesseract, I did that in some translucent resin so we can see right through it. Now, the wiring was a nightmare. Remind me next time not to print one piece and try to put the wiring through. You can see a hole in his elbow. I had to feed it from the hand into his elbow, then double loop it back and push it through. I had to make a hole at the bottom when I broke a few bits off, which won't impact on it because you won't see them, to get it through. It took me ages, lots of poking with tweezers, but I did it in the end, so thank God for that. But next time I'm going to do it in pieces, but yay, we've done it. Now, I've purchased some of these. These are some flickering blue candle lights from eBay, and they are going to be perfect for the Tesseract, and they were really cheap. I'll put a link in the description for you. Now, I sprayed the thing with some rattle can black paint, and oh my god, it took forever to dry. We've got -4 here in the UK. I don't know, you guys live in cold countries, but it took forever to dry it. So next time I'm going to use my primer on my airbrush when the weather dips a little bit low, but I had it all lying around, so let's use it. And I gave it a really good coat of rattle can black. Back to the trusted airbrush for the rest of it, and I've used my go-to matte black air primer from Army Painter to give everything a matte black coat. The red skull on the whole is black. Everything about him is black, all his clothes, his hat, the base I've probably done a little bit black as well with just some dry brushing, which you'll see later, but I'm giving the faces a real good going over. Now, I'm going to do some slap chop method on the faces that I saw the creative collector, old Henry, using, and I was so impressed with the results. I'm going to do exactly the same that he did, and we'll talk you through the process there. Once everything's had its black, I've used this sapphire blue for the Tesseract. There it is with the translucent resin, and I'm not going to cover it completely, but I am going to give it a light layer so you can still see through it. I don't want to make it too thick so you won't be able to see through, but in the same token, when the light's off, I still want it to look blue, so a light layer of this blue. Now, we talked about slap chop. Get some of your grey primer, and over the black, dry brush some of this grey straight over there. This slap chop technique is a technique which is you put a base layer of black down, then you get some grey. I use grey primer, but any grey will do. You give it a dry brush all over of the grey so that you see the highlighted areas as grey and the low lighted areas as black, and then once you've done that, you'll take some white and do it again. We'll come to that. Exactly the same technique on a different head, and I love this one. This one you can put the hat on, so it's going to give me some great options of choice when I finish. And there they both are with their grey primer on. You can see what they look like. Some great depth to them, some great highlights. Really pleased with how they look. Now, for the actual face, I'm going to add a little bit of this barbarian flesh. Now, I normally do flesh on the airbrush, and I have quite a detailed technique to how I do it, and you can see my other videos to how I do flesh, but I wanted to do it a little bit different today. So I'm just going to paint everything with a brush, just so you can see that you can do it without an airbrush. So I'm taking barbarian flesh, and I'm just going to cover it all over and pop it to one side to dry. Now, the actual emblem on the front here, I wanted to give it a look of 3 different colours: red, orange and white. So what I did was I started on the outside with red, and I watered it down just a little bit, and when I was happy that I got the red all the way around, what I did was I started mixing on my wet palette the red and the orange together, and then I started to move further in and mix them in using a little bit of water and a little bit of merging the colours together, if you like. And as you go further round the emblem towards the centre, I started to put more orange, less red, and then when the orange was in there and embedded, I chose some white and started to mix the orange with the white, and you get the picture. So it just lightens up all the way down. I think this makes a better look than just painting it red, because the emblem is red on the outside and the sort of octopusy bits are black, but I think it looks much nicer if you can just merge the colours in. Now, I'm no expert at this and I've seen it done much better. Yes, you can do it on your airbrush as well, got no doubts about that, but for me, I just wanted to have a little play and a little experimentation, and you know what? I was really happy with the end results. And there we go, all done. And I'm pretty chuffed with that. Never done anything like that before, so quite happy. Now back to the face, another layer of barbarian flesh, and you can see straight away that we're building layers here. I'm not going to change any colour yet, I'm just going to put another barbarian flesh on there. I am probably just keeping away from the inner parts of the eyes and the inner parts of the nose, just to allow that black to shine through, or not shine through as it happens, just to add a little bit of depth to the face. Now back to these slap chops that we're doing on the red skull, and you can see now that I'm dry brushing white over the grey, and straight away you will see that the white areas on the pronounced sections of the skull really do stick out, and that's the whole point of this slap chop. Black base layer, grey medium layer, and then a really light white top layer, and look at that, really easy to do and adds a fantastic colour at the end. You wait till you see it. Right, back to the face, barbarian flesh, another layer going on, and you can see straight away it's starting to look really flesh-like, and I'm so chuffed with that. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to start to up the colours up and add some red. So you can see me here just dabbing some red onto the cheeks, just some very light reddy pink. You can hardly see it, but I'll build a few layers up as we go along, and I'm just going to use a tiny bit of water just to merge it into the barbarian flesh colour, and I'll put that red in other places around his head, etc. While we're talking red, oh, this stuff's amazing. This is the speed paint from Army Painter. Oh wow, now watch this. This is where that slap chop technique comes to absolute life. Putting on one of these washes over it really just makes it look amazing. Just check that out. I will be using this technique again without shadow of doubt. Absolutely amazing. Same again, look at it go on. It's so easy, this process, and it makes the details stand out so much, especially with these speed paints, which are fantastic. And there we go, he's pretty much done as well. Wonderful contrast colours there. Now back to the face, and I'm going to paint the insides of his eyes black. You've seen me do eyes like this before, I know you have, but on flesh models we do a black coating first where the white would go, and then we work the white in, just leaving an outer layer of black. I'll do that in a little while, but when I've got them in and they're in lovely, when I do the red skull, I don't need the black because he's quite dark on the inside. So for the red skull himself, I'm just going to put a white with a hint of blue just on the whites of his eyes. Took a fair few layers here because I wanted it to stand out really, and I've done it the same on all of the red skull models. Small brush, delicately, and take your time when you do it. Now you'll see what I mean when I say I'll put the white over the black, and there we go. Straight away, instantly, you can see there's a kind of a built-in shadow there. Now with a male figure, the bottom of the bottom eyelid needs to be pinky red, which I will do. On a woman figure, you can get away with it and leave it as eyeliner. Now a bit of leather brown for the hair. This is a base layer for the hair. It's not the final colour, but it's a great base layer for me to paint his hair. He's got brown hair in the film. I should know this actor's name, but oh my, it eludes me. Right, dry brushing again, and I'm just going all over the emblem with the dry brush just to give it a little bit of life to it. Easy technique, dry brushing, as you know, I speak about this often. And once I've done that, that's done. Back onto the flag at the back, and I'm not going to show the whole process, but you can see what I've done. Red on all the octopus tentacly bits and a gold eagle, and that is done. Now back to the hair. hardened leather, and I'm giving him a coat all over this. Now again, the speed paints will settle into the grooves of the hair and look darker than the outer edges, and they will give it a little bit of a more natural appearance. If you haven't got speed paints, I really do suggest you get some. I am absolutely hooked on the things. Contrast paints I think is the same with Citadel, but the speed paints and Army Painter are just marvellous, absolutely fab. And there we go. Now you can see the eyes as well. I put some red at the bottom and I have painted in his irises. Now getting some grey primer here, and I'm just going to go over the hands. I'm going to do exactly the same slap chop technique on the hands, so I'm giving them that base layer of primer first. I want them to look pretty much the same as the skulls. Now if you need to buy any paints or you want to buy anything at all, check the item description where you can get stuff, and as an Amazon affiliate a little bit will kick back to the channel, and it just helps me make these videos for you guys. Moving on here to the white, and I'm just highlighting some of the outer areas of the hands there. Now back to blood red, the speed paint, and let's get that on as we did the skulls, and boom, the hands are starting to look absolutely fantastic. Don't be afraid with this stuff, it's so easy. Slap it on, literally slap the stuff on. You don't have to be too careful, as long as you keep it to where you want it to go, of course, but there's no real technique. You just literally put it on and it sinks into the deeper areas and sits higher or a lighter colour on the top. Now for the cross, his Nazi cross there, I'm going to take some silver and I am just going to gently, with a really small brush, just touch all that up so that it sticks out. His uniform is on the whole black, and that's already got a leather look from giving it that rattle can black. So I'm just going to highlight a few areas on the uniform with this silver. First was the cross, then his belt. Now again with this, it's got the Hydra sign in the middle, so what I did do there, I just dragged the paint over it to try to keep a little bit of contrast on that Hydra sign. I didn't want to paint it out or paint it through completely, and it did have about 2 coats of silver on there. For all the other little bits and pieces, these are important to do. This sits right in the middle of his chest virtually and will stand out. Make sure you don't forget to paint that silver. Really narrow brush and take your time. All the buttons are going to be done now, and again this isn't hard to do, it's just a little bit time consuming, and you've got to be really careful. Don't get bored, make sure you do it carefully and move the model around if you need to, but once it's done and it's on display forever then, so take your time with this bit. Okay, back to the grey primer, and I'm now going to airbrush the bottom of the base. I want to make it look like a marble kind of effect, so I'm just going to use that grey primer and a really big makeup brush to blast it all over, and you can see straight away it's starting to look really lovely and looking like a marble kind of effect. Right, now for the wiring up of the Tesseract, I've used 2 of the little LEDs because one just didn't look bright enough, and I'm just easily connecting red to red, black to black. No rocket science involved here at all, and if you can, oh yeah, don't forget, test them once you've done all the joints, just make sure it all works. I'm using a little bit of insulating tape to seal them up here. If you can do a little bit of soldering, then that's probably a better option. You can use much smaller wires, but I just didn't have it to hand, so I thought that I would do it with a little bit of tape. And now I'm just going to feed these into the Tesseract. Bit fiddly, but once we got them in there, it was done. Give it a good old squeeze and pop it together, and a last test, and it's done. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the making. I'm going to show you the final product now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.